few little things tonight. I'll give you a little brief overview of how this is going to work. We have our esteemed panelists who we'll introduce in a minute, and then we'll bring the candidates up, each race respectively. The candidates will, once asked a question, they'll have 2 minutes to answer the question, and then if the panelists at their discretion wants the other candidate to answer it, they'll get a minute. And one of the things we instituted a few years ago was kind of a 30-second response rule, in that if you use your candidate's name in vain, they get to respond. And with that, we'll have the panelists introduce themselves. John, why don't you start, and we'll figure out the microphone levels as well.
My name is John Dolan Heitlinger. I am currently a social studies teacher, looking forward to teaching government and economics in this coming semester to high school students. And I've done a whole lot of other things, including been drafted into a variety of unpaid jobs by Todd German over the years.
Hi everybody, my name's Bandy Miles. I'm the editor of the Key West Weekly newspaper. Been in Key West for 25 years and just appreciate the chance to do this. Thanks, Todd.
I'm Brian Green. I've also been here for 25 years, and I'm president of Monroe County Education Foundation, whose main project is Take Stock in Children.
I'm Linda Grist Cunningham. I'm the newcomer because I've only been here 12 years. And I am editor of Key West Island News, and I write for The Citizen.
Something we're going to try tonight, and the panelists have agreed, it's not universally accepted, but I've asked the panelists to try to keep the questions local and to really not go off onto national issues. And we find the national issues are where the real acrimony and vitriol happen, but locally, this is the stuff that really, really matters to us. So looks like that's where we're going to go. I'll run down the agenda. We had a couple candidates that weren't able to make it, so we've switched things around. We're going to have supervisor elections first. Unfortunately, Sheri Hodies couldn't make it. She's sick, and I did speak to her. It seems very, very genuine. So Margret will come up alone. Actually, Margret, you can kind of come up so we can get rolling along. Then we'll do Keys Energy, School Board, BOCC-District 5, Key West City Commission, and Key West will wrap up with Key West City Commission District 6. I want to thank Matt back there at the soundboard for the studios of Key West, and Jed for setting it up for us. Kelly Davey in Paradise, who will be running the soundboard, and what she does is, the reason you can hear us through the event is she's constantly adjusting the mics, and we'll adjust them as we go too. And then Jamie is doing from Duval Street Media. She is filming this, that we will upload that hopefully by midnight, latest tomorrow morning. We used to do the whole live stream thing. I don't think we ever had one event that it wasn't a terrible pain in the butt. And it just never worked, and it disrupted the whole thing. So this way we keep it rolling. Things go well, we'll be out of here before 7:30. So let's get things started. Margret, can you come on, take a seat. And with that, we'll have the panelists introduce themselves. John, why don't you start, and we'll figure out the microphone levels as well.
My name is John Dolan Heitlinger. I am currently a social studies teacher, looking forward to teaching government and economics in this coming semester to high school students. And I've done a whole lot of other things, including been drafted into a variety of unpaid jobs by Todd German over the years.
Hi everybody, my name's Bandy Miles. I'm the editor of the Key West Weekly newspaper. Been in Key West for 25 years and just appreciate the chance to do this. Thanks, Todd.
I'm Brian Green. I've also been here for 25 years, and I'm president of Monroe County Education Foundation, whose main project is Take Stock in Children.
I'm Linda Grist Cunningham. I'm the newcomer because I've only been here 12 years. And I am editor of Key West Island News, and I write for The Citizen.
And I think, Linda, this is your first panel with us, where the other guys are all, you've done it before? Oh, then never mind. Well, glad to have you all. So we get right into it. We found we don't do opening statements. We get right to the questions, and then each candidate will do a 2-minute closing statement. So let's just start right down the line. John? And because Margret's alone, we didn't want to deprive her of time. So she'll have 10 minutes, she'll get questions, and then a closing statement. But we do ask, since her opponent's not here, we can't pick on someone that's not here, so we'll figure that out as we go. So, John?
So Margaret, what would you do to make sure that we have fair elections where only people who are qualified to vote, only ballots that are authorized are cast, and how would that be any different than what has happened under the previous regime?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to say it's going to be that much different. I think where it might be a little bit different, I will be much more looking at verifying and making sure that things are accurate, because Joyce and her team have done a wonderful job, as well as Harry Sawyer before. It's an office where there is integrity. There's an office where there is transparency and impartiality. Now, the way that I would improve it is to keep my eye open for technical improvements as they come along and utilize various sources to make sure that people are accurate with their data and it fits all of the qualifications to be a qualified voter in Monroe County. So there's a lot that's right with that office. And as we can see that improvements can be made, that's what we will do. And having been with IBM 30 years, I'm not afraid of technology, and we will keep our eye on those advancements as well. But I'm not going to take pot shots at Joyce's organization at all. They do a great job, and I want to maintain, as well as if we see improvements can be made, that's what we'll do.
Andy?
I didn't used to need glasses the first time I did one of these forums. Margaret, if elected, you will be replacing Joyce Griffin, who has spent 40 years working in the Supervisor of Elections office, with the past 12 of them as the head of that, elected head of that office. Neither you nor either of your opponents have ever worked in the elections office as an administrator, other than perhaps as a poll worker. What training do you plan to take part in to learn the job and Florida election laws?
I'm going to take the training that's offered as a member of the Supervisor of Elections Association and make sure I get my certificate to be even more knowledgeable than I am regarding election laws than I am as I am right now. I have done lots of research on election laws in the state. I have made contact with people in the state before to learn and make sure the information is accurate before we pursue, is this right or is this wrong? And I intend to get my certification in it, as well as continue to ask Joyce when needed, as well as our county attorney, hey, is this right? Make sure that we're doing things properly. So I will be applying trust and verify to my own self, as well as all and anything having to do with the elections office.
I think it's fair to say that Sheri Hodies is probably better known in the Middle and Upper Keys, whereas you're a very well-known face in Key West. So my question really is, what have you done to get to know and earn the trust of the voters in Key Largo, Tavernier, and Marathon?
The first thing I did, back even before I filed for my candidacy in January, since I did say since September I would file in January, I was going to the Republican meetings just to kind of get a feel for the area, both in Key Largo, which they meet in Almirada, and Key Largo alternately, and in Marathon, and that's where I started to get to know people. This week alone, I will be at 3 different events in the Upper Keys. I've been to the Rotary, I'll be involved with the chambers, and I'm getting to know people slowly but surely to gain their trust. They know who I am, and it's getting out more and more, and we'll have more and more things on the websites and films. But the best thing to do is just go and be with the people, meet people at church, you know, if you see people in the stores. So it has to be little by little. And you're right, it's a lot of territory, and my base is down here, but I have to serve the entire community, and I will make sure that I make it my priority to be up there often once I'm elected, which I hopefully will be elected.
Margaret, you have a long and very storied career as an executive micromanager, especially in your time on the Key West Commission. In the current Supervisor of Elections office, that's a very collaborative environment. So how would your style affect the current culture in the office?
Linda, I am sitting here a little bit with my mouth open because at IBM, I was known as a very collaborative manager. So I'm surprised to hear that evaluation of me, that I was micromanaging. But one of the things you need to know is that I was, my last 10 years, an executive consultant at IBM, specialized in strategy, business organizations, and also, believe it or not, relationship alignment, which was not the touchy-feely, do you get along with this person or that one? It's what skills and dynamics do we have to utilize between the companies that might be competing, within departments within a company, to make sure that everyone is best served so that the objectives of the company, or if you will, the contracts between the companies are well organized. So I appreciate that someone had a different opinion of me than I had of myself, but thank you for that. And I'll tell you right now, yes, have I associated with the folks in the Supervisor of Elections office? Have I ever worked there? No, and I wouldn't claim to do so, but I have a very good working relationship with all of them, and I also have good working relationships with the various constitutional officers and folks here in the county, and I expect it to continue to be that way, and again, to make sure we serve the people well.
May I ask a follow-up? Sure. First, a disclosure. I was trained by Joyce Griffin's office to be a poll worker, and I've worked at the Moose Lodge for a lot of years. Have you done the training, and have you been a poll worker here?
No, I have not done the training. Am I aware of the training and what goes into it? Because one of my friends was the main person over at the senior center for years, so I kind of vicariously learned about it. But no, I have not been a poll worker, nor have I been a poll watcher. I've been a candidate, and I've helped other people to learn what the election laws are, though.
We're about it right. Anybody got a quick question for Margaret? Go ahead.
I have a quick, really as a follow on that. So you haven't volunteered. What then led you to put yourself forward for this job, since you didn't seem to have a terrific interest in this before?
I did have an investment, especially when two other people were running for the office here in Key West, and I was helping them. I was doing data analysis and monitoring what was happening and what was going on. And I kept telling these two candidates, there's something off with the numbers. The numbers are really off from what I remember them being, 4 years ago. And I was trying to figure out what the difference was. And that's when I really started looking at what are the qualifications voting, And you need to know, it wasn't anything that was being done wrong or needed to be improved by our elections office. They were doing everything that had to be done. But I saw a big jump in the voters down here is what sparked my interest. And a lot of it, I think, had to do with some of the federal tax laws that came out in 2017 was one of the things that I think led to that. So back then, when I started doing the research as to what had happened in their campaigns, was when I really got involved as far as residency requirements, legal voting, who could vote, who couldn't, and a lot of those topics. And I said, you know what? If Joyce ever retires, that's something that really utilizes my skills and my quest for information, and that's another way that I can be of service to the community. And so I said, I'm going for it. And I do have the management skills and such to do a good job of it.
Thanks, Mark.
So, can I just, sorry.
Very quick.
Just to follow up, but to be clear, there was no numbers off with regard to our office or fraud or Joyce. It was more of a difference in residency of people voting who didn't necessarily live here but may have owned property here or something.
No, I'm not even going to say that that was the case. What it was, there was a big jump of people between the numbers that I had 4 years prior. I think it was like a $3,000 or $4,000 voting roll difference, but there was absolutely nothing wrong that had been done by Joyce or her office or anybody that had filed. The only thing we found for a couple of homestead exemption frauds. But absolutely nothing that Joyce and her team did was out of whack or people that shouldn't have been here. But it just made me start to question a lot of things.
Thanks, Mark. Let's go right into your closing statement.
Okay. And you're right, Linda. I am well known here in Key West. And people who do know me know that I'm fact-based and partial. I do my research, I get the facts, and I've got very high standards activism when I used to talk at the school board or planning boards or about affordable housing. And I want you to know, I think I have proven to this community, and now I have to prove it to the rest of Monroe County, that I am definitely transparent. I definitely have integrity, and I have shown that through the years, and it's not something I'm going to promise to do in the future. As I've alluded to, I have the management experience. I know how to work with people at all levels, all demographics, and that's another trait that I think I do very well at, and I want to continue to do well at it. And what I want to make sure that you know is that I will make sure that your vote is protected and secure from the very beginning when somebody signs that registration form until the machines and all the records are put away at the end of the day. One of the things that I want you to know is this email was sent to my opponent in February from Joyce Griffiths. It's a publicly available document, and somebody did print it in the newspaper, and it talked about my opponent's misrepresentation that she had worked for the office for a certain amount of time. And my comment on that is, if someone is misrepresenting information in the beginnings, are they going to do that later on? So I ask you as voters, anything you hear on the campaign trail, I don't care if somebody, and I'm going to use a crazy allegory, if somebody were running for dog catcher, make sure that anything you hear on the campaign trail or you read somewhere, go back, verify it, and don't just take it at open thing. Investigate back on me, and I would appreciate your doing that as well. Now, as far as credibility and stuff, some of you may have heard this already, and some of you haven't.
Wrapping it up, Margaret.
Here's my wrap up. I want you to know that as far as somebody who has attention to the law, I have been endorsed by Myrna and Dennis Ward, our state attorney. And to me, to have the confidence of the state attorney for an endorsement is a big deal, and I want to make sure you folks know about it. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dennis and Myrna.
Thank you, Margaret. And thank God we don't have elected dog catchers. So, Keys Energy, Rachel Oropeza, Tim Root, and Vidal, want to come on up? First question, Mandy, you get to.
Does,
Rachel or
Up to you.
oh, I can pick either?
No one's done yet, so.
All right, I was going to ask the same to both of them, but basically,
ladies before gentlemen?
there you go, that works. That's for Hi, Rachel. Hello, Tim.
2 minutes and you'll have one to follow up.
All right.
Rachel, since you are a newcomer to this to this race, to this board, how do you view the job description of the utility board, and why did you choose to get into it? How do you view? I think I've lived here 25 years, and to be honest, I don't know whether I could answer the question what the utility board does. So, what would your answer be?
Well, haven't seen a job description, but what I have seen is I've lived here all my life and stayed through hurricanes. Yes, my family is one of those. We have never left. And so I've seen them on the ground, you know, after storms, what they do. My mom worked there. My dad worked there for a short period of time. They treated my mother very well. My mother is retired, and they still treat her very well. Like any new job, I think, you know, I'd have to go in and learn the ropes, meet the staff. I've already toured the facilities. I've met with a few folks just to start learning and doing some homework. And this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, just for me personally. And I'm at a point in my life where I have the time and the commitment to do it. And at the time I entered the race, it was an open seat. It no longer is the case, and that's okay. I'm going to learn. I want to educate myself and educate, you know, our consumers.
Okay. And I got 1 minute. Yeah, and I apologize, Rachel. I wasn't going to get in. I was going to retire, but I didn't because a lot of the linemen and a lot of the management called me because of what's going on with warming water and hurricane preparedness, that's what I specialize in as a general contractor and infrastructure. But getting back to your question, I am currently the chairman of the board, and my job basically as a contractor is to watch over the construction projects, the hardening of our system, a lot of our checking up on natural gas and the pricing. We have to do a lot of that. A lot of it has to do with company morale and keeping reliability and basically protecting the ratepayers and getting the best price that we can possibly get for you, which has not been easy over these years because of the price of natural gas going up and down. And also alternative energy, we are really working on that really hard right now.
This is for Tim. What are the most urgent actions the board needs to take to address climate change and to make energy efficiency viable for homeowners?
Well, right now, when we first started out with Florida Municipal Power, we were only allowed to have so many solar homes in the community, to 70. Since then, we've been able to have more than that because the obvious thing is the revenue goes down when solar goes up. But as of this year, we were at a level at 16 or 20 a year. We are presently at 65 or 72 homeowners that are doing rooftop solar. We also have 3.5 megawatts of power through Florida Municipal Power Association that we are part of, and we are planning on doing another 30 megawatts of power by the year 2025, 2026. We also have a $30 million grant looking out to the infrastructure legislation as a grant. We pay 50% and they pay 50%. And there's also a joint action grant for our advanced metering system that we're trying to get in place, which helps the clients or the ratepayers understand how to be more efficient. And that grant is for about $15 million also. So to get $60 million, we got 30 million to spend, or to get 30 million, we have to spend 30 million, but it's a great thing, and I'm in the middle of it now, and it's another reason why I came back. We're right in the middle of the application process.
This is for Tim, and Rachel, you may want to chime in on this later. Can you talk about the pay and benefits for the board and why we even need a paid, benefited board anymore?
Well, actually, the board only has benefits during their period of being elected. The board does not carry benefits on after retirement. It goes away. I think this is not a partisan race that we're in here. This is a thing about being a leader and knowledgeable about electricity, and you can do as much as you want. You can put as much of this in you want. You can go to a meeting on Wednesday and vote yes and no, or do like I do. You can ask any of the linemen or management. I'm in the trenches negotiating contracts with the construction people and really watching out what's going on. And I think the pay is reasonable, and I think everyone should put a lot of work into it.
Rachel.
I wasn't aware there was pay until I've been on many boards over the years, and I have never been paid to be on a board, and I wasn't aware of it at the time that I applied. Actually, a friend on the board is the one who told me, and then actually Mandy, I knew the salary once I read it in Keys Weekly. So that would be a plus. And again, I am, still in the educating myself and learning phase, but yes, I understand that there is pay and benefits. If it's not after, leaving the board, like I said, that's okay. I've volunteered for many years and never been paid for my services.
Clearly, technology is changing not only in energy, but in many other things. If affordable, would you be willing to support a small nuclear plant in the Keys?
Who's this for?
Either.
Rachel, go.
Both.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Wow, a small nuclear plant. Off the top of my head, I think my answer is no. We live in an area of critical state concern, the marine sanctuary. Not that I wouldn't want to have easy access, to power. However, I have a lot of reservations about that.
I would have to say I would have to really study that a while, but believe it or not, the way that Keys Energy works, we are a distributive power company from Florida Municipal Power Associations, and we are under a contract with them, and they are looking into all these things, and we stick mostly with solar right now. our big thing down here is battery storage once we figure out how to get solar. And that's a big thing. But again, if you all are watching the technology, the battery storage is turning into lithium might not be the answer anymore. There's a lot of things with silicone and hydrogen, and we don't want to get in too soon. We want to get in when we're ready.
Okay, thank you.
We can do another round.
Oh, another round? Okay. So, as members of the Florida Municipal Power Association, can you guys both explain what that means, what the benefits are to us when it comes to being able to, as a small power provider, being able to get economy of scale and be able to purchase power, but also, did I hear one of you correctly that there were limits, that association limited the number of solar arrays that homes could have, that private homes could have? Could one or both of you explain that?
Start with Tim, because you brought the limit up.
Yeah. What we have a contract with Florida Municipal Power Association. They try to keep all their generation close to their facilities where their transformers are, so they can generate electricity out to the grid. And they came up with this idea that why should we have a lot of solar down here when they're going to put it in Central Florida? And there was a discussion that went on a long time about this, and we finally got it approved that everyone needs rooftop solar. I don't care where we're at. We need anyone that can afford it, anyone that wants it can have it.
So no limits?
No limits now.
Okay.
Tim,
Does Rachel?
Rachel, you want to say anything?
Sorry.
Well, I would ask, can I phone a friend on that one? Because I am still learning.
Well, let's go. We'll go to
Okay. Even though I do know that Miss Lynn sits on the FMPA board, she is, yeah.
That's
Tim, I want to go back to an earlier comment you made. You've sat on the utility board since 2013.
yes, sir.
Isn't 11 years long enough? Wouldn't it be a good thing to get new ideas and new board members?
Well, Brian, it was a good time, but I think with the warming of the ocean right now, I am one of, if not the only contractor that has been on this board. And it's very important right now, I think, that I come back. And I've been asked to, for that main reason, is to be prepared and be the first responders and help in the field and organize and lead.
Then I want to just sort of follow up to that, because I'm very confused about the role of the board and the role of the CEO, because it seems to me you're talking as though you were the CEO as opposed to the board itself. So perhaps it would be helpful if you could describe the difference between the two.
Well, number one is we hire the CEO. So I would say that most of the people don't get involved, but me being a contractor, with our CFO, they asked me to get involved with the contracts and construction because of my knowledge. With the hurricanes, only do I jump in when the hurricanes are actually happening. And then I try to get out in the field to look at places where we might be able to send linemen to do positions. But micromanaging, I do not do. It's not my job to be there.
Rachel, this one is for you. I would love to have solar on my roof. I think that would be terrific. I live in District 1. There are setbacks and things that aren't going to let that happen. But if it were to happen, what can Keys Energy do to establish a solid foundation of technicians who can install, work, maintain, and repair, which we do not have?
Well, I work out at the college, and I run the president's office. And so I think the first thing would be to let's form a partnership with them and start those training classes. I'll just use Yamaha as an example. Yamaha, they have come down and partnered with us. They provide the motors, and so we provide the classes and the skills. So I think there's an opportunity there to partner with the college and or other folks, and I am still learning, so there could possibly be other training already available for that. But if not, we have a great local resource at the college to get that set up and running.
Don, last question.
In the late 1850s in the United States, we experienced a very large solar flare. Now, we did not have much in the way of electronics today. If that happened today, I would like for you, and Tim, I'm going to ask you first since you got the experience, is our grid within the Keys prepared to completely withstand that level of solar flare? And if not, is there a plan to fix that?
Well, I'm just crazy you asked that question, because in the news today, we are overdue for a solar flare of the century. And there is a complete article online, if you all want to look at it, about how bad it would be if we have that solar flare. And not only us, but most people in the world will not be able to deal with that at this time. There are discussions about it, but more on the national level than it is on the local level.
But we can be hardened. And by the way, I had discussions with people on the Keys Energy Board years ago about this, and they all said they were going to do something.
Yeah. Well, most of it is done through the federal government and through our software system with the federal government. So most of that stuff that you're talking about is done with the federal government working with our software, because we are all interconnected in a national grid.
I'm sorry, I got to say something. That's not accurate. You've got to have the hardening at the local level, or you get shorting out between wires.
Well,
And that needs to get fixed. I'm sorry, humble
Okay,
opinion.
I'm a bit of a science geek myself, and I agree with you.
I don't agree with that.
Let's
but
do,
I'm
well,
not going to
let's
argue.
do, closing argument, or closing statements for both of you. Tim, go first, and let
Okay.
Rachel last, because she's
All right.
really not as many questions, so.
All right. Like I said, serving on the board as chairman right now, I am been happy at doing what I'm doing. My experience in infrastructure and construction, I think right now during these times with the warming of the oceans and hurricanes and what I know, my knowledge and leadership can help. And I've been CEO of a company that's done $40 million a year, and that's what I know how to do, is a lot of finances. And finally, just like everyone else, I've served this community starting on the Heart Board for 6 years, the Planning Board for 11 years, and the TDC, which I am on the Board of Directors right now, and Habitat for Humanity, which I am on the Construction Committee. I was on the board on 2 Affordable Housing Task Force, and currently getting off of everything but Keys Energy, and have retired. And I hope to have your vote. Thank you.
Well, that is a tough act to follow, but I am going to follow it. So I think most of you, I see a lot of familiar faces in this room, know me. I am one of you. I was born and raised here. I have served on numerous boards over the last 30 years. And what I would bring to the board is, proven board experience. I'm reliable. My attendance, I would be there. I think the local knowledge of my community and customers, I'm one of you. I am doing my homework. I am educating myself. I will continue to do so. I very much support Ms. Tejeda and all the staff of Keys Energy. Like I said, my mom worked there many years ago, and they are still good to her in her retirement. I actually also have legislative experience from, days gone by, and I am doing this for the love of my community and my fresh new level of service. And thank you. I ask you to vote for me on August 20th.
Thank you both.
Thank you all.
Said, we are, Brian, you are up. You first.
Okay, this is for Zach first. In a January article in Keys Weekly, you said Monroe County's biggest challenge is to provide affordable housing to attract and retain quality teachers. Yet you also say you would sell the Trumbo Road site. So what's your idea?
It's a very good question. And you can go back and forth on this a lot, as I have in the short amount of time that I've been studying this. There is no easy answer for this question. And if you listen to experts, people who are developers, people who have been around a lot longer than I have, you'll hear a lot of good ideas. The truth is that the Trumbo property is worth a lot more than what it's being developed for affordable housing. If you look at what it's property appraiser has it valued at, and it is simply, in my opinion, is not being used for the highest and best use. And that is my opinion on that property. I do believe that affordable housing is a priority, and so you would think that we need to utilize that property because it belongs to the schools, but really it belongs to the people, the taxpayers. And so, you know, if we're going to develop that property, at the very least, I would have some specifics about how it's being developed, because I've seen the plans, and I think the plans that are already being looked at have flaws. And I didn't say I would necessarily sell it. I think maybe leasing it is what I said at a hometown, one of the previous hometown PACs forums that we had is a 99-year lease. I don't know that selling it is the answer, but you know, it's a tough question for sure, and thank you for asking it.
Well, you haven't actually answered the question.
Okay.
Just for information,
Please.
it is a 99-year lease, which is in the agreement with the developer. The question was, if you're not going to develop there, what's the alternative?
What's the alternative for affordable housing?
Yes, you say that's the most important thing to do, is to provide affordable housing for teachers.
Where?
No, you made a specific point.
Yeah.
That this was not the right site. You wanted affordable housing for
Yeah.
teachers.
So that was
the
in
question-
that was
the
in
question
January.
What's the,
Yes, sir.
so you've changed your mind?
I have, yes, I have. Affordable housing is a great tool to attract teachers to Monroe County, but I do not believe that it is going to solve our problem. I think that we want truly supreme educators, and in order to do that, I think we need to treat them better and have them assimilate and live amongst the community. I see affordable housing as a short-term solution for attracting new teachers or teachers that are maybe approaching a bad market. And so they would need to find some housing in the short term, but no one wants to live in affordable housing for a decade, and we certainly don't want our great teachers to have to live in a teacher town.
Is that for both, or was that just for Zach?
I'm very happy for Yvette to pitch in on the
Go ahead.
affordable housing issue.
1 minute.
Yep. The affordable housing over at Trumbo is already in the works as per the current school board. They are in lease agreements at the moment. And I think that selling the property, which is irrelevant at this point, honestly, because the school board has decided to move forward unless something goes wrong with the lease agreement, could be a short-term solution for a long-term problem. Housing is going to be and continue to be a problem in Monroe County, and I think that it's important that we use the ability to build that property there so that teachers have someplace to live, and I think that the school board is also looking at doing something similar along the Keys. So I believe that it is crucial that we find ways to house our teachers. We can pay them a nice salary, which we do, they're the highest paid in the state, but we also have to help them find housing. As we all know, although they are the highest paid in the state, this is the highest cost of living, and that is the same for the housing.
Linda.
This question is for Yvette. You've wanted a seat on the Monroe County School Board for at least a dozen years, and each time you've run, you have committed to strengthening and supporting teachers and staff, safe schools, improved student achievement, and community partnerships. If you win this time, what specifically will you do to ensure safe and supportive environments for LGBTQIA students, parents, staff, and teachers?
That's a big question. I ran one time 12 years ago against a longtime board member, Andy Griffith, and I did so at that time because I was passionate about what was going on with our school system at that time. I'm a firm believer that you cannot complain unless you're willing to step up, and I was willing to step up. Andy Griffith decided to retire, and I thought that I had the skill set and the knowledge to be an effective and productive member of this board, and I plan to work collaboratively with the board to attack all of those issues. I believe our kids deserve a safe environment. Our schools are doing an excellent job. There's been no findings on safety. We have a great working relationship with the law enforcement in our community, and I hope to continue to keep our schools safe and secure for our children, all children. Everyone should feel safe in school, no matter who you are.
You didn't answer the question.
Which part of it?
Other than at the very end about all students. I asked, what specifically will you do, particularly in today's school environment, for safe, supportive, environment for LGBTQIA students, teachers, staff?
I think that all teachers should be trained to address these issues. If a child feels safe and unsecure, they can approach a teacher, and I believe that we have the professionals and the professional relationships in our community to handle these issues. I think, as far as I know, our schools are safe. They're safe for all of our students. I have not heard where anyone is feeling unsafe or unsecure. And if they are, those issues will have to be addressed, and I will address them accordingly. I don't have enough experience of specific incidents to address that in any other way. I am dedicated to the school system. I always have been, and I will continue to be. And I believe in safety for all children.
John.
I'd like to go back to the housing issue. I worked on trying to have affordable housing here for more than 30 years with not great success, in my opinion. Would the affordable housing that's being built be limited to being occupied by full-time teachers? Or does that apply to bus drivers or part-time substitutes? Second question is, if there is not somebody living in that unit that is not a full-time teacher, do they get kicked out? And I would like both of you to answer that from a policy standpoint.
All right, Yvette first and then Zach.
That is a lease agreement that they're working on now, is my understanding, at the school board meetings I have attended. And yes, the conversations that are on the table right now is there's supposed to be 150 units at that property. 50 of those are supposed to be for educators and support staff. There's also another 50 which will also be first come, their top priority and choice for those apartments. There was a second part, wasn't there, John?
Second part is, and this is because of what other communities have experienced, somebody gets in the housing, then they go and get other jobs, and they're not teachers anymore. Do you kick them out?
That is part of the lease agreement that they're working on, to have that understanding that it is strictly for for teachers and support staff. So yes, there has to be some sort of strong language in that agreement to make sure that is what happens.
Yvette, you may know, because this is something John and I have talked about with others in this room. What if they've served in the school district for 20 or 30 years and they're in that housing? What then? Do they have to leave or not?
Those details I don't believe have been worked out. That is what they're in the process of doing.
If either one of you are on the school board, because this has come up in other communities.
Yes.
What happens? What do you?
Well, that's a very valid concern. I believe that the purpose of the housing is to offer it to working members of the Monroe County school system. So I would think there'd have to be some sort of language in there to determine that at the end of their service, I would assume that the lease agreement will be up with them.
Zach, same questions.
This is where this gets very complicated, because the school board is not developers, and we are asking them to be developers and have these long conversations that take up 80% of every school board meeting I have been to in the last year that I've been coming to them, about something that doesn't directly affect our children. We are wasting a lot of time in school board meetings talking about capital projects. We've spent the last 20 years building our schools, and I know they're beautiful and we needed them and they're safe, they're hurricane proof, they're safe, but we have lost our way and we have lost our focus on what is inside of these schools, which is the students and the teachers. So this talk about affordable housing is important. I realize that. It's what the county talks about night and day, but we need to focus more on the students and the teachers. Right now, from what I remember, and that contract is very detailed and complex. We've both been to the meetings, and we're both going to have trouble remembering the details of that contract. The proposed contract, which isn't necessarily going to go through, there are a lot of hurdles that are going to have to be jumped in order for this to happen. So this isn't a done deal by any stretch. All right, I'm sorry, I talked too much.
Real quick on John's second part about if the teacher leaves.
Yeah.
What happens?
If they retire, they leave the housing, correct?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that.
Well, there's a pretty clear answer one way or another on that. I'm sorry.
You're right,
That's
and it
yes or
deserves
no.
an answer. I don't have it, and that's why I'm not going to answer it.
That's fair.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Moving on. Okay. Mandy.
This is one of the hometown member submitted questions for Zach Bentley. Does it matter or should it matter whether school board candidates enroll or have enrolled their own children in public schools?
Thank you so much for asking this question, truly. My children attend St. Mary's Basilica School. I did not envision them attending private school. I went to Point Siena HOB and Key West High School, but we started my daughter there at 3 years old, and it had been a wonderful experience. And I do love her being immersed in the sacraments that I was raised in myself. But she is there primarily because, and my son as well, because it has better educational opportunities. And I want all children in Monroe County, read my lips, all of them, to have better educational opportunities. And there are things we can learn from St. Mary's by having an open dialogue as to what they might be doing good, because they are spending less money per student to educate their students. So if we want to talk about fiscal responsibility, we need to look at why they're paying their teachers less and their teachers are more satisfied. Those are good questions to ask, but I don't believe that there's any merit in saying that my family is any less committed to the public schools because my children go to private schools. Nothing could be further from the truth, because we are all committed in sacrificing to do better for our community, which is the definition of the greater good.
Brian?
This is for both of you. If elected, you would be on the school board during the selection of a new superintendent. What key abilities would you be looking for? Zach first.
That's a very good question. I'm in favor of trying to promote from within a superintendent. That doesn't mean that I would oppose bringing one in from out of our district. The qualities of a good superintendent have a lot to do with fiscal responsibility. The superintendent presents the balanced budget to the school board for approval. But the superintendent, I believe, also has to be a great communicator, be able to work with all the various principals, and bring together a vision for the schools that is beneficial to the students. I don't know that I have any longer of an answer for that question, but yeah.
Short answers are okay. So
That's right.
move
That's
through.
right.
Go ahead.
I talk too much.
It's all right.
I do encourage a nationwide search, and I also encourage local employees to apply as well. I think it's important that in the vein of doing what is absolutely best for the children of Monroe County, we need to interview all of the best candidates, and the cream will rise to the top. And if that candidate is from Key West or from Texas, that is fine with me, as long as it's what's best for the kids of Monroe County. And I do agree that the superintendent that comes here has to understand the demographics of the Keys. It's really geographically challenged. And in my travels meeting all of the different administrators and staff, the one thing that I do find is that the schools in the Upper Keys feel a little bit of disconnect. So I think it's important that our superintendent not only understands the financial part of it, but also the human factor, the factor of inclusion. I think all of the schools need to feel that they are part of the whole. And to me, that is important when we bring in this new person, that they understand our geographical locations, that they communicate well with our teachers and with administrators, so that everyone feels they're a part of our team.
10 or 20 seconds?
Well, we're going to go into, you can get 10 or 20 seconds, of course.
Okay, thank you.
That's a small ask. And then
Yeah.
you keep the mic and we'll do closing statements and
Thank you.
2 minutes.
The only reason I would focus on a local search is because the Florida Keys is unique. We all know that. And it tends to be difficult to expect someone from somewhere else to understand our demographics and what makes the Keys unique, and the sticker shock of having to live here also.
I didn't realize that I could respond to something.
Yes, you can.
It's very
Go ahead.
important to
10
me.
seconds
Yeah.
while he's getting his speech out. We're-
Okay.
Maybe to do your,
The one comment I had to make was the question.
quick.
Oh, geez. The question that was asked of my opponent about having your children in private school being an issue or not.
If we get in that, we're going to go back and forth.
That's
Well, that is.
That's right.
That's come
Okay,
completely
you got it,
out. and
you
was
got it.
another
I'm sorry,
thing.
I
You can
I'll
address
wrap it up.
You can
Yes,
address it
I
in your
will.
closing
I will.
statement if you want.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Todd, and thank you all for being here. My name is Zach Bentley, and I am the candidate who is 100% committed to the children of Monroe County. This is why my platform centers on teacher satisfaction and fiscal responsibility. Supreme educators, Mandy, I didn't need glasses either, but now I need them. Supreme educators who feel supported by the administration is where the rubber meets the road. Mark my words. If we raise teacher salaries by 15 to 20%, but we do not fix the way we treat them and provide them with the tools they need, we will continue to lose them. And at the very least, we will handicap their talents. It is irresponsible and careless to not address the way we treat teachers. I know this is hard to discuss, but that is how we know it has value. Anything of value is never cheap nor easy. I also am the candidate who is committed, 100% committed to the truth. And the truth is the status quo is broken. Focusing on capital projects is proving to create poor outcomes for our children. Our schools rank 37 out of 67 in the county, 67 counties in the state of Florida. We should put in writing a specific and time-bound goal to become a top 10 school district in Florida. The specifics will include becoming a district that attracts the best educators on the market. As a father of 2 school-aged children, I believe we share the same priorities. And while the buildings are important, the highest priority is the children and the teachers who educate them. Plato once wrote, "The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our own egos and live in another's world." As your school board member, I will always listen and respond to your concerns with empathy. I humbly ask for your vote on August 20th. Zach Bentley, thank you.
Zach?
I'm Yvette Talbott, and I have spent 30 years committed to education and to the children of Monroe County through the various organizations I've served, like Take Stock in Children and many others. But I do think it's important that the person that serves in this seat has had connections with the public school system over time. I commend any parent who wants to do what's best for their child, and if private education is the best thing for your child, then that is fantastic. It is our job to make our children, their experience, and their education a priority. And if that school and that education is your priority, how can the public school system be your priority? It has always been my priority, continues to be my priority, and I hope to serve you as the next Monroe County School Board member. My dedication over the years is proven, and my qualities and knowledge of the school system will be beneficial to the board. I ask for your vote on August 20th. Thank you.
I want to really compliment the crowd, too. Seemed like everybody got it, or you're just afraid I'm going to call you out and kick you out. Let's move right along. Monroe County Commission. Linda's going to start off. Here we go.
This question is for Holly. You've been a faithful trooper for the state Republican Party for many years, and your recent vote to allow the construction of the Tavernier Public Center falls in line with the state's position and opposite that of much of the community. How do you justify what some consider to be a vote undermining home rule and local control?
We're going to start right off with the easy stuff.
Yeah, let's get it out of the way. Thank you for that question. And this was a vote that I toiled over. I lost sleep over. I spent a lot of time praying about this, talking to folks, and at the end of the day, I had to make the best decision I could, thinking of the future of our community. What makes up that project is 86 workforce housing units, where we give preference to first responders, educators. We just heard from the school board how important workforce housing is, as well as healthcare workers. So we've got first responders, teachers, healthcare workers, where 70% of your income must be made right here in Monroe County. If you're making 70% of your income in Monroe County, you're likely making 100% of your income here in the Keys. There's also another component to the project, a Publix, which I think is complementary to the housing portion of this. This is the CEMEX site is one of the last pieces of property in the Upper Keys that could sustain a development of this nature. And so again, I did not make that vote. I did not take that vote lightly. It was something that at the end of the day, I think I made the best decision. I think that there's many opportunities still left to mold and morph that project into the best that it can be, and we will be listening to the community as we move forward with that project.
John?
Holly, I'm going to go back to the housing thing, since I guess I've worked on it a long time, and talking about this public housing or other housing. First question is, who is going to manage it? And second, if they retire, do they get kicked out?
You seem to be stuck on that, John.
I am, because
yes, so-
I want to. It's important that you understand. I'm not somebody that hates retired people, since I are one now. But
You're
I think
teaching
it's
now.
important to understand that if you don't have that rule, you will have all of your affordable housing filled with retirees, and that's exactly what's happened to Aspen, Vail, Carmel, and all kinds of other wealthy communities in the United States. And thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, John, for that question. And you just answered your question. And we will be monitoring. Obviously, there will be an application process. And similar to the comments made by the school board candidates, if you no longer work in Monroe County, you should no longer be in Monroe County housing. It's very simple. It's black and white. We have a housing authority that I think has the nuts and bolts. Part of the organization is to build and monitor housing in the Keys. And it's unfortunate if we've experienced it already as a county. We have some projects scattered throughout the Keys where you have to have those uncomfortable conversations with your former employees that maybe got let go for whatever reason. But the housing is specifically for these types of employees. Once they're no longer employed in that field or for the county, then we have to have that uncomfortable conversation, and you can bet that there's probably somebody in line waiting to take their spot.
Andy, for
Melissa, okay. Melissa, given the many issues facing our Keys Island chain, from bridge replacement and road repaving to the coral reef and derelict vessels, what is your take on the idea of a toll for motorists, non-residents, entering the Keys, as was recently proposed by Mel Montagne in a letter to the editor, for a one-way $20 toll for non-residents of the Keys?
I know this has been brought up several times over the course of our history. I think last it was, I believe, brought up over 5 years ago or so. Now, I do understand the need for a toll one way for non-residents, but I would say, and yes, we have the turnpike that we get onto as soon as we get out of the Keys, but I will say that I can't see why Miami wouldn't do something similar to us the minute we get out of the jurisdiction of Monroe County, which ends around mile marker 114. I have to think about this because I have not prepared for this question actually, but I will say I think there are other ways we can get money for these projects that doesn't involve a toll that could have a harmful effect on our residents leaving Miami to go into Miami-Dade, as we do have a lot of people living in Miami-Dade who work in the Keys.
Brian.
This is a question for both Melissa and for Holly. Melissa, first, you talk of a 20% cut in the county annual spending. So what services would you cut?
So the 20...
For Holly, your opponents have criticized the increase in county spending, so why are they wrong? Starting with Melissa.
Okay, so...
2 minutes for Melissa, 1 minute for all.
Okay. In terms of the county budget, I do want to be clear on the fact that I was a Monroe County biologist in the Planning and Environmental Resources Department. I will say that our workers are very, very hard workers, and I do not propose cutting any staff. I believe that, as I said in a previous debate, that we should be doing some kind of independent forensic audit on what is going on with this county spending. It has increased exponentially since 2021. In a time that we have inflation, where we ourselves as locals have had to make really critical decisions on if we're going to eat or pay our rent or pay our bill or have car insurance or even home insurance. The county has spent a lot of money in this same time frame, and I do believe that when we have things like workshops where 30 employees are going on a hotel and having, their food covered and their expenses covered, there are things we can cut. $150,000 bicentennial party, for example. I think there's some cuts that can be made that can help us put that back into our community, and that's what I would have to say.
Thank you. And understanding our budget is a really critical component. It's one of the most important functions that we perform as a county commission. And what you'll notice if you look at our budget historically is that we've had two major projects, capital projects, come online. That's the Key West International Airport, where we welcome over 1 million visitors per year, as well as 3 new Trauma Star helicopters. That is a giant chunk of our budget. And then the ad valorem portion of our budget, which is where we have the most flexibility, 77% of it right off the top goes to public safety. We also fund all the constitutional officers that we're required to. And in order to cut that spending, we would have to cut the programs that are so special to our community, like senior centers or parks or libraries. And I, quite frankly, am not willing to do that.
Thank you. On Linda, yes.
I'm going to follow up on the 20% cut. That's $150 million out of that budget. So while $150,000 for whatever it was mentioned is a drop in the bucket. So going back to Melissa and then to Holly, I suspect that most of the county budget is devoted to staff costs. 60 to 80% would probably be about right. So where are you going to cut to get $150 million?
Well, let me also mention something I didn't talk about, which is our contractor contracts. I think there's a better and more streamlined process to do government bidding for major projects that we're giving $839,000 here, $1 million here. I mean, that all adds up. So if we had an easier way to have competitive contracts, not just locally, but to make that either a statewide or even a nationwide search for the best contractors that don't have to go through a bunch of loopholes, feeling that they may never, I will tell you, a lot of these, I work with these types of consultants, and they say, we don't even do this because we're putting so much energy and time, we don't get paid for it, and we have the feeling we've done this many times and we've never gotten the contract. So I think if we made an easier process, that's another big way we can make cuts without cutting our essential staff.
Do you want me to touch a little bit more on the budget?
Yes.
So, government is not immune to the same economic issues that everyday residents experience, like rising insurance costs. Imagine all the properties that we have to cover across the county. We have 3 of everything, sometimes 4. We also have seen a rise in fuel, steel, any sort of material. We're experiencing inflation and rising costs. I think that attempting to cut essential services is not the direction that we want to go to. We are a small county with big county problems. We experience 5 million visitors a year. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with regard to the economy and our local economy and budgeting, and I will wrap it up.
Thanks. John.
Melissa, you may be aware that the model that drives development in this county of ours is a completely unrealistic one that assumes 100% evacuation, and that study has never been peer-reviewed. Would you be willing to challenge that?
So let me just make sure I understand the question. You're stating that development at this time with the 24-hour evacuation model hasn't been peer review. Is that what you're saying?
It has not been peer reviewed, and it assumes 100% evacuation. There has never been more than a 50% evacuation since I've lived here.
And I agree. In fact, one of the reasons I decided to run is I am extremely, extremely concerned with us opening up the keys to it more and more development. It's not just a matter of the environment. It's not a matter of development rights. I know those things are important, but what's important is the evacuation model. When's the last time we did it? Is it peer review? No. And now we're not even considering the massive development that has happened in Florida City up to Kendall Drive. That's not in our evacuation model. Another thing that's not in our evacuation model is the mobile homes and non-permanent residents that can eventually become permanent residents after they have left, if they've gotten destroyed in a hurricane. There's many, many things like that, and I think about these intensifying hurricanes that come out of nowhere in 24-hour period. I have driven in Wilma the rain bands in 2005, and I will tell you that if you get to that point, God help you, you know, and I feel really worried about the people in Key West. I'm worried myself. I'm at mile marker 92. So I will say that should be done first, a peer-reviewed study, before we start opening up more building.
Good job. Okay, Mandy.
This is for both candidates.
So Holly first.
Okay. Sorry, I lost my place. Was the Board of County Commissioners derelict in any way in its responsibilities in not auditing the TDC for 20 years? That was a member-submitted question.
Yes, that's a wonderful question, and yes, we were. I think we got a massive wake-up call. We got a massive wake-up call in the clerk's audit, and we appeared to be asleep at the wheel. Tourism is our #1 industry here in the Florida Keys. We are a leader in the state of Florida. I would venture to say we're #3 behind Miami and Orlando. We need to be the model for the state, not coming from behind. And I think, and I'm very encouraged by the steps that we've taken. I actually represent the BOCC on the TDC board as the current mayor, and I have learned so much. We need to restore accountability. We need to become even more transparent, and I think the hiring of a new director is a fantastic start. From there, we'll work our way down, hopefully have a marketing director, a finance director. I mean, we are a top dog in the state of Florida, and we need to act like it.
Right.
Is that the same question?
Did you want her to?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
1 minute.
And yes, I agree with Holly on this. And this is why I also feel that our county budget should be audited and many things should be more transparent to our public. Because I will tell you that I think there's many people here who have tried to figure out what is going on with this budget, and it is not clear. And it is actually very unclear, and I'm not exactly sure why. If we're so proud of getting, federal and state funding, why aren't we, like a nonprofit, why aren't we championing that on our website, for example? So I believe that we should have more audits into not just that, but even our workforce housing. Who's the compliance department for this workforce housing? As far as I've gotten from people up at the top, there is none. So there's another story.
I didn't catch it. Okay. Brian, last question.
I'd like to ask you about homesteading, starting with Holly. Can you tell us what the percentage of homesteading is in Monroe County and how that relates to overdevelopment?
I'd like to say that I could tell you the exact number. I want to say we break down our taxes a third, right? So we have a third homesteaded properties, and again, these are round numbers. I apologize that they're not super correct. And then obviously commercial, and then second homeowners. I think that unfortunately the state preempts us from adjusting our local regulations with regards to vacation rentals. I think that's one policy area that should be regulated, well, many of them should be, but this is one particular area that should be regulated at the local level. We're seeing vacation rentals shove out full-time residents. That's a huge deal. We don't have anything consistent on the books, and I think the state of Florida needs to allow us to regulate ourselves locally. But we are also having a pretty intense conversation regarding future development in the Keys. I hope that everybody takes advantage and takes the survey. Survey number 2 is out right now, where we receive feedback from the community on how we're going to move forward on the hurricane evacuation model, which takes into account if you're a full-time resident. That's who we want to hear from, and that is whose opinions matter in this conversation.
Okay. Can you add, is that the same question for me?
No, it's not. The focus really is to do with the year-on-year reduction in the percentage of people who are homesteading, and therefore everything is built around an assumption of a much higher level of permanent living.
But that is-
So the question is, what could you do to try and stem the reduction in the number of people who are living here, on the reduction in homesteading?
I'll let Melissa answer that one, and then we're going to do a closing statement.
Okay. So just again, when you say there's less people now homesteading than before,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. All right. So I think one of the reasons that we can all state, and maybe I'm not saying this right, but this is my interpretation of what you're asking, is we have less people homesteading because we have less people who can afford to live here as permanent residents. Our working class is disappearing. And I think a lot of the reasons are, I think a lot of people cite issues of just living here. I mean, obviously our traffic has gone up and things of that nature, but also the cost of living has gone up exponentially. Obviously there's a lot of younger people, myself and younger, who can't even afford, they'll never be able to afford to live here. So it's gonna be very difficult, I think, for people to have a first-time home here, and that is what we need to focus on. How do we keep our locals here?
It's a tough question, so. Well, Melissa, why don't you, we're going to do closing statements, 2 minutes for your closing statement. You go first, please.
So I am here because I have a strong feeling based on recent events in our Keys that there's a lot of people in our community that feel that they're not being listened to by the BOCC. And there is, at least in my neck of the woods in Tavernier, there's a big unrest about certain things that have been done. The constituents have not felt they have been heard, and they don't feel that they're gonna truly be heard for this ROGO. This one of the biggest decisions in our lifetime is how many more buildable lots are we gonna allow from now until maybe 30 years from now. This is affecting our children who are here and not even born yet. These are affecting animals, have no voice, and also environment. So and then it's affecting our hurricane evacuation models and so many other things, the strains on our structure and our bridges and our roads. It affects everything. So that is one of the reasons I ran, and I do have a very strong background. I've been here for 20 years. I'm a scientist. I own 2 businesses. I know how to work on tight budgets. I know how to come up with innovative ideas to age-old solutions that we have not fixed. And I feel that we are looking for, as a community, new blood and innovative ideas for things that have had decades of time to be fixed and have not been fixed as of yet. So these are also nonpartisan issues. This is a universal ballot. I hope you consider the actual platform and the topics, and you vote for me, Melissa Ptomey, on August 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Holly?
Thank you, and I'm running for re-election because we've got some big ticket items on our agenda as a community. We have, as previously mentioned, the hurricane evacuation model study that we are relying on the community for input to move forward on. We have lost or are losing at a rapid rate our middle class because of the cost of living expenses and the lack of workforce housing here in the Keys. That's a topic that's not going to go away. There's not a perfect solution out there, but we have gained ground and we're going to keep doing that as a community. We also have massive infrastructure challenges, whether we're talking about sea level rise, flooding, repairing roads and bridges. We have dozens and dozens of them that need repairs. These are all complicated challenges that require experience, that require vision, that require an unique understanding of how government works. I have the experience, I have the vision. I have served our community over 20 years in different capacities, whether as a legislative aide, as a state representative, and now as your county mayor. I have brought home an extreme amount of resources that have helped with priority projects like water quality, land conservation, and stormwater restoration projects. I hope that I can count on your vote. I am Holly Merrill Raschein, your mayor, on August 20th.
Thank you both, and we'll have a discussion with Monica. That'll be, so it's an evening with Monica. How's that? And we'll do this for about 10 minutes and see if we can get through a few questions. So John.
Thank you, Monica. Long-time friends. We have known each other a very long time here.
Not biased.
No, I'm not biased. I'm not.
Is this on?
I actually was going to ask about affordable housing, but I think I've beaten that to death, so I'll
I was
restrain
expecting
myself.
Brian to ask that.
I have noticed an increasing number of vehicles that seem to be incredibly polluting in our community. They are scooters and golf carts. I thought the idea was we were going to have vehicles that were less polluting now. It appears to me that we are increasing the air pollution we have in our community with all these gas-fired vehicles running around. Would you have any position on looking at that as part of the city commission?
Well, technology and people's ingenuity certainly has exceeded some of the existing guidelines and ordinances that are on the books. Not just scooters and electric vehicles. Well, I guess you're not objecting to the electric vehicles, but gas-powered golf carts and such. I think that there's an opportunity for the City Commission to take a look at all these different forms of transportation and try to perhaps look at other communities that have addressed these issues. We all don't like it when they're quiet, they're not polluting, but sometimes they're called e-bikes, but many of them are really, unlicensed motor vehicles that do not belong on a sidewalk or a street. So the city has an opportunity to look at this range of alternative transportation options that have just emerged in the last, say, 5 years, and perhaps, craft some good ordinance that have some enforcement teeth in them, so our city police can actually ticket people, because if you don't have enforcement, your ordinance is no good. So once a person is ticketed, if they have a fine and they don't pay that fine, then that becomes an offense that can be pursued further. And so that's what I think.
Thank you, Monica. Next question, Monica. Andy.
As a representative of District 1, which is obviously heavily Old Town, Duval Street, and several businesses, how can you assure business owners that you would represent them and their interests as well as relevant? How would you balance the needs of businesses and residents in that district?
Well, District 1 is certainly contains the economic engine, of the city. The main tourism industries are all located in District 1. I believe the first 100, 200, and 300 blocks of Duval Street produce more revenue than the whole rest of Duval Street combined. So District 1 is very important for business and for the community in general and for tourism. So I am interested in particularly supporting small businesses, small local businesses, family businesses, businesses that have been around for a while. and not see them pushed out, squeezed out by bigger corporate businesses that are owned mostly by out-of-town investors. That being said, I'm delighted to see the business community embracing a kind of tourism that attracts people who are interested in fitness, in health, in well-being, in the arts, in architecture, in culture, and I think those kind of tourists who we do see coming to Key West now in greater numbers than in the past. Spring break is down, that kind of drink until you puke tourism is down. So I think we can work together to make a tourism industry that benefits the residents and is attractive to the visitors also.
Thank you, Margaret. Right.
Monica, what is your position on the renewal or otherwise of the transient rental licenses in Truman Annex?
Thank you, Brian. That's a good question. And, beverage break.
Until we're winding down here.
Okay. I attended the annual meeting of the Truman Property Owners Association, and I was interested to hear that their board is not taking a position on this issue, which is, most important to people who live in or own property in Truman Annex. So right now, there is a special license that has a 25-year length, and that 25 years is due to expire in 2025. So that license, that special license for transient rentals was crafted as a negotiated settlement agreement between the city and Truman Annex, and it allows, within Truman Annex, short-term vacation rentals, nightly rentals, weekly rentals, which is a privilege that the residents of the rest of the city do not enjoy. Everyone in the city of Key West can rent your home, if you like, for a month or more, unless you have already gotten a transient rental license for daily or weekly rentals, and there's no more of those to be had. So as far as Truman Annex goes, I think when that 25-year license runs its course, that's it. It's done. There's no language in that agreement. Oh, thank you. Break for applause. There's no language in that agreement that contemplates an extension, a renewal. There's nothing like that. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Monica, you're already on record as supporting the idea that the new city commission could ask former city manager Al Childress to return. If that weren't to happen, what do you propose as the next steps to run the city? And would you seek to slow down or delay projects like Duval Street, Mallory Square, or even postpone the $300 million referendum?
So just let me make sure, I'm not sure what I heard, Linda. Did you say if that were to happen or if that were not to happen?
If he were not to return.
If the former city manager, Al Childress, was not to return. So that presumes there would be a new, different city manager in place. And then the question went on to say what?
Would you seek to slow down or delay projects like Duval Street renovation, Mallory Square project, and the $300 million referendum?
Okay, so those first two, the revitalization of Duval Street and Mallory Square, I believe are already well into the planning process. Grant money has been expended in the planning and development of those. And I don't think there is any reason to slow that down. The first public meetings for the Duval Street revitalization, they met with, mixed response. I believe that the consultants are, going back and fine tuning and, who knows? I mean, government moves really slow. So to say you want to slow something down that already moves really slow, I don't think I would say that. Regarding the bond issue, the former city manager was the architect of that bond issue. So there is a special meeting at 2 o'clock on Thursday of this week. That would be the second public hearing for the bond. So the commissioners who are on the dais now, they're going to make a choice whether to let that bond go forward onto the ballot or not. So it might be a moot issue by the time I get into office or my opponent gets into office. But I think right now, the way the wording is that the bond issue is divided up into 4 different categories. So that might all change on Thursday, but if it would go forward the way it is now, you could vote, for instance, yes on police and fire and no on parks and recreation. The other categories are, I know what they are. Let's see, hardening infrastructure, and what's the 4th one? Help me out here, somebody. Okay. All right. Okay, it'll come to me.
We have a couple, not quick questions, but questions that have quick answers.
I think I have one that may have a quick answer. I think many of us in Key West, when we look at the news and look at the homeless situation in many parts of the country, particularly California, go, what is going on there? We don't have that situation in Key West. What are we doing right, and what can other folks learn from us?
So homeless.
Homeless.
Question. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Maybe it's the high cost of living. I don't know. We do have that great COTS facility on Stock Island. Maybe it's not all that attractive to stay there. I'm glad that we have less of a homeless problem than other cities. And, as far as what we're doing right to keep it, I don't really know.
Fair.
Quick one? Okay.
With quick answers.
Okay. On August 26th, the City Commission will consider a proposal to rehire City Manager Al Childress. If elected on August 20th, what factors will you weigh most heavily in deciding how you vote?
Well, I will weigh the fact that I believe his dismissal was done in a hurried and ill-considered fashion, and also absent the input of the citizens. I am a person who, if elected, will listen to you, the citizens, the voters, and hear what you have to say. He was let go without cause, so there's no finger pointing at anything that he did particularly wrong. So that is something, that I will consider. It would be a tough thing for me to sit at my very first meeting and have to make this, very important decision, because so far, I've been an outsider with the city. I've certainly met with many officials and department heads and employees. I've met with the former city manager a number of times. I actually called him today because I thought I might be, asked some questions about that issue, and I wanted to know, would he indeed still want to come back? And he said yes, he would very much want to come back. And the relationship that I've had with him is whenever I've called him, he's always picked up the phone, or he's called me back. He's, text, email. He's been very communicative. I've seen the communications that he gave to the city commissioners on a weekly basis. I think he's followed the rules, and he wanted people that worked for him to follow the rules. And so those are some of the conditions that I will weigh.
Thank you, Monica. And that was newsworthy what you just announced, that he does want to come back. Any quick ones?
I have a quick yes or no.
Okay.
Would you support transferring Truman Waterfront to District 6?
Transferring Truman Waterfront to the citizens. Don't we already own it?
No, to District 6. Rather peculiarly, it's in District 1, but
That
it's
Cuban accent of his.
District 6.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch
We'd
that.
moved Truman Annex into District 6, one of the city commission districts.
Correct.
I think right now just the housing part of it is in District 6. The rest
Yeah,
of the park is District 1.
So I was looking that up today, whether the new affordable housing to be built across the street from the amphitheater would be in District 6 or District 1. I think it lands in District 6, although it's not quite sure. And there might be redistricting later to balance out the numbers of people in the various districts. But I don't, can you help me with?
It's a very peculiar plan when you actually look at the districting. That was all.
Oh, okay, yeah, the district itself is crazy. You know, it includes the military
Let me rephrase
housing.
this question. Would you be open to making the districts make some kind of sense?
Oh, yes,
Next time we-
absolutely.
Yeah. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
All right, well, Monica, do you have a burning question? Okay. Let's do okay, quick.
Would you consider disciplinary action against the city attorney?
Aha, he's sitting right here in the back of the room. So,
I got to learn to stop asking for easy questions.
you know, I believe that investigation is taking place into some of the activity that went on at the city level. So I'll wait for the results of that to come in before making any statement one way or the other.
Well, thank you. No more easy questions. Okay, Monica, 2 minutes to wrap up.
All right, thank you so much. So I will be your voice when elected. I support and will represent you as an individual citizen, as a small business owner. I will listen to you. I will listen to you and I will pay attention to what you're saying. There's a lot of smart people in the city of Key West. A lot of them are right here in this room. I always like to surround myself with people who are smarter with me, you know, smarter than me in some areas. And I'll continue, you know, listening to my business advisors, to my colleagues. I will continue to talk in the sunshine on the dais to my fellow commissioners, and hope to maybe improve communication both, you know, within the city, internally and externally. And hope you vote for me. I ask for your vote, and to continue to support clean water and clean streets and a clean campaign. Thank you.
Brian.
This is for Thaddeus. How do you think the lofts will change District 6, and do you support the home equity element?
The last part was, do I support the
home equity
element?
The shared ownership, the private market sector, the discounted market sector.
The way the lofts is set up currently, there ought not to be that much. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just telling Marcy to pull up.
There should not be that much change as far as the makeup, because they're looking at Bahamas Village residents first as the first tier. They're looking then at folks who live within a neighborhood, if you live within Key West, and then you live outside of Key West. So that is how the rental as well as the home ownership component goes. On the home ownership side, as you know, I had brought up the issue that you had to reapply if your income exceeded what HUD had, and that you could lose your home. So it really wasn't home ownership. It was a leasing type agreement. So they went to the legislature to be able to get that part of the land authority's language changed so that there could be true home ownership. The issue currently, I think, is the cost. That if you're in 80 to 140 AMI, that's the average market index. For a 2-bedroom, you're talking somewhere north of 371 for a 2-bedroom. And if you're looking at a 3-bedroom, you're talking somewhere north of $417,000. So from my perspective, that is still too high. And typically in affordable housing parlance, you have that donut hole. How do you afford folks between 80 and 100 AMI? That is one of the reasons why I went to the county commission to be able to speak to them about the dollars that they're receiving from the TDC, $35 million for affordable housing. and that they could place possibly 3.5 million into the lofts to help drive down the price. I also spoke in front of the city commission for that same reason. So I think there's an opportunity now that they've made some adjustments in home ownership, but now the issue is cost.
This question is for both of you. I recently overheard a conversation in a doctor's office between two residents of District 6. How are you doing these days? One asked the other. And she said, oh, okay, I guess. Just sitting on my porch, watching rich white people walk up and down thinking they own my neighborhood. How would you explain the changes in District 6 to her, and what can you do about it?
That's a little bit of a tough one because I think that gentrification happens in cities that are beautiful, that attract a lot of people, and property values go up because so many people want to live there. Unfortunately, people make a choice to sell their homes, and taxes go up and cost of living goes up, and then when they sell their homes at the price that they get for them, the taxes go up even more based on the value of the sale of the home. So as far as I've seen around the globe, when you get a beautiful island or a beautiful spot in the world, this is just what naturally happens business-wise, and it's a terrible thing. There could be some type of tax incentives given at some point, maybe greater than our homestead exemptions, to try to keep people in their homes, but as far as I see, it is something that is just naturally occurring when you have a beautiful spot that people want to live in.
Yes, it is a tough one, and...
I'm sorry. Go ahead, say this.
I thought he said...
No.
Oh, okay.
I was wrong.
Sorry.
You got it.
Okay.
1 minute.
It is a tough one, but I think part of what we can do is depends upon what she owns as a person who makes that comment. So if you're a single-family homeowner, you have an opportunity through the code to be able to do an accessory unit on your property, which can help increase income. So lots of folks who live inside of Bahama Village own their homes, have a lot that they would be able to take advantage of something like that. You could also do through tax incentives, work with the legislature to be able to help, almost not sliding scale is something that was proposed in the mid-90s, to be able to help offset someone's housing costs. You can also then work with local churches for them as nonprofits to be able to acquire those homes and then basically lease back to that individual so that they have the ability to maintain where they live. A lot of also what's being talked about has to do with culture, which is a different question.
Thank you. I mean, these are impossible questions to do in a minute or two, so
That's
thank
true,
you. Yes. Done. Give me another impossible question.
No, I'm afraid I'm going to still stick with affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
With the affordable housing that we're talking about having available, will wealthy children be able to inherit the properties? If it's ownership, will wealthy children be able to inherit the property?
No.
If you do not?
No, if you exceed the income, that's a transfer of the unit. And if the transfer of the unit, it goes back to the level of affordability. So anytime that there's a transfer of a unit, it goes back to being affordable. So you could not inherit that unit if you fall outside income guidelines.
I just need to make sure that I'm clear on this. So you're saying that if a child has lived there, they become wealthy, they may not inherit that. That property is then taken by the city and sold to someone else?
That's not the question that you asked.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm sorry if I didn't word it correctly. That's what I'm asking.
So let's try this again. So you're saying a child lives with their parent, and at some point the parent deceases?
Yes.
And you would have to meet the income requirement.
Let me clarify. I think I can do it a different way.
Okay.
Someone lives in the home.
Yes.
And they die.
Yes.
And they leave an estate, and,
Yes.
and the people they're leaving it to are wealthy.
No.
What happens? Does the city have a first right of refusal to
They would
buy
have-
that property back?
As it's written currently, you would sell the property, it would go back to being affordable. No, well, it doesn't go to, well, the developer still has control. But the point is, it would go back to a level of affordability. So, no, you would not be able to pass that on to, quote, wealthy.
It has to be
children.
liquidated. I guess it shows
You
how
have to-
complicated these contracts are.
Yes, but that part is relatively straightforward.
Okay. Man. That's kind of where we're.
This will be for both candidates. What ideally would you envision for the diesel plant at the sort of at the intersection of Bahama Village and Truman Waterfront Park to benefit the Bahama Village community?
Really good pizza and ice cream. You know, I'm not really sure about that. It is such a beautiful building architecturally. And I think people were speaking about privately selling that. So I think what has come up is some type of stone oven pizza place, but I really don't know what that can be to benefit Bahama Village. The traffic there is insane as it is right now. I don't even know how it's gonna carry the affordable housing that is being built there right now. The streets are so narrow, I can't imagine even being able to provide parking other than what's there once the housing gets developed. So what the best use of that would be, I would really have no idea, except it would be nice if it would be something that wouldn't require a lot of parking.
Yeah, I would say that over the years, there's been quite a few conversations about the diesel plant. I will proffer some of the ones that I've had, which is be able to work with the college, for example. At one point, there was a conversation about bringing their hospitality program to Bahama Village there because the college had a presence in Bahama Village at one point. The diesel plant engines are still there. So you could have a museum on the first floor, a cafe, and then up above you could do some level of office space for nonprofits to be able to help the costs come down. 4th Street was to be looked at as a pedestrian way to be able to help alleviate on the traffic side for people to be able to get into both Bahama Village as well as that on the first floor level. So I think that there's some opportunities for both BVRAC, which is the advisory board, and the city to think creatively about what you could do there. There's been an outside group who's proposed a facility. I would not necessarily be in favor of that one, but I think that there are some partnerships that we can create in order to make that happen.
Okay. Your district includes Duval, from Southard to Southernmost Mansion. What's your view on the pedestrianisation of the street, and do you think the trial pedestrianisation they did by Southernmost Mansion has been successful or otherwise?
Thaddeus and
I attended two of the charrettes that they've had. As you know, Duval is really 3 distinct areas. You got Lower Duval, Middle, and as far as the Upper, where we're mostly involved with the Upper. A pedestrian-only street doesn't work. There's only 2 that I'm aware of in the country where you got Rodeo Drive and you have Lincoln Road in Miami. Everyone else that's tried to do it has had difficulty. So the atmosphere that you have, which is what's that south of Truman, is very different than what you have down at Mallory Square inside of District 1. I've talked with the businesses there. They're looking to be able to have their businesses spill out onto the sidewalk, but still are looking for the traffic to be able to generate eyes and ears and noses that know the particular stores that they'll be able to go to. And I think with a broader transportation structure, we would be able to reduce the traffic levels to be able to make the entire city more pedestrian friendly.
Wait, that was the walkable part. I'm curious of the other part of your question.
Yes, I just wanted to direct you to, it has been done in the area outside Southernmost Mansion. And the question was, did you think it had been a success or not?
Outside of Southernmost Mansion, I think it had limited success. Because what we were able to do was to change the parking lot at the southernmost point into a park area. So that allows the pedestrians to spill out into the street. That made that a little bit more successful had that not been there. And then you're also looking at the buoy, being able to make a more plaza facility there, a little bit more pedestrian friendly. So you've got 2 nodes that you can then connect along the street which I think creates a better pedestrian atmosphere. But there'll still need to be some level of traffic being able to get through.
Marcy, same.
Presently, there's still residents that live there that have to also get in and out of their homes. And I was called by one of the residents, and they were not for limiting it to pedestrian traffic at all. And I can imagine if I lived there, I would feel the same way. I think those interests have to be considered along with the business interests and find some type of balance. And I amazingly just walked down in front of the southernmost house for the first time into the little park area just yesterday. And it seemed to attract a little bit of a homeless type feel in that area that were hanging out. So I'm not sure how great that worked. But at the same time, it was also okay because it's not an area where there was a lot of people driving in and out. But people really do use the southernmost point where the buoy is to drive in and out. And we've one-wayed quite a bit of those streets that I don't really know was successful in easing up traffic in that area by making those streets one way. But that might be an option instead of making it all pedestrian, is perhaps to just make it one way. But again, just to reiterate, I think really listening to the residents in that area would be nice.
This will be just a yes or no from both of you.
We can try.
Will you or will you not support asking Al Childress to return?
I'm going to keep it simple. Yes, I will support Al Childress to return.
I don't think that's the correct question. I think the correct question is, I think it would be beneficial for the new commission to be able to have a consensus on what the commission believes they're looking for in a city manager. How it is that they're going to interact with the citizenry, the commission, the city attorney, the clerk, and staff. And when you just have this as your first step, I think it's problematic. It does not allow the new commission to exercise their judgment as to the type of leader they believe that can take us in a positive direction. And now this process has become political. It's already difficult for someone who's aligned staff to work in a community, but when you up the ante to make it political as people are now counting votes, I think that's a disservice to the new commission.
Thank you, Thaddeus. I told you it was never. John, we're moving along. We're wrapping up here, but go ahead.
I guess the same question that I asked previously. Our community seems to deal, in my opinion, very effectively with the homeless. Are there any changes you would like to make in the way that our community does deal with the homeless, given what you know about it today?
That is then.
One of the things I think that could be possible is to work more collaboratively, I think, with social services to do wraparound services so that we're able to move people from the condition that they're in to help them be more productive. Obviously, housing, I'm supposed to be looking this way. Obviously, housing is an issue that I think we can make steps towards solving. But from what I can tell, wraparound services would be something that we could look and lean into more heavily.
I think that's a great idea, Thaddeus, and I also would support things to occupy the homeless. I just recently heard of a cleanup effort in a city where gathering up trash and putting them in these big vestibules actually would give you cash back. So we could put our homeless to work in some way to clean up the city. But certainly having services to help the homeless is a good idea, because although we might be better than some cities, we still have quite a bit of homeless, and I think it's still a pretty big issue.
Thank you, Marcy. Brian, last question, and
simple one.
Or wait, I'm sorry. No, wait. I screwed up. It's Mandy.
Oh.
Mandy, last question.
Doesn't matter.
Brian's already had two.
Oh, that's right. District 6 is often described as being specifically Bahama Village, but it actually includes significantly more in terms of residential neighborhoods outside of Bahama Village, as well as businesses on Duval Street and otherwise. What would be your plan to address and bring some of the business owners and residents outside Bahama Village into discussions about District 6?
Well, I've already been in touch with the Southernmost Point Community Program, and I would be meeting with them. I believe they have yearly meetings. There's also a group that is formed over in the Casa Marina area that I would like to be part of. But I was also hoping to have an interactive website so that people could express their opinions on the agenda for the city commission meetings in an interactive website. So that I would know the majority of my constituents' opinions before I went into the meetings, and be able to really represent the people and not my own interests, because they might be a little bit different.
That is.
Before I declared, I had an opportunity to talk with business leaders. When I attended the charrettes, that's the reason why we talk in terms of the 3 separate sections of Duval, and understanding that it's different at one end of town and the other. And then even as you move up Truman, you can start to see some of the impacts of traffic, road construction or lack thereof. So it's being able to walk the community, knock on doors and talk with folks to be able to bring those interests together. So I've been doing that. That's what I do currently. That's how we developed the park, for example, at the end of Duval, which is a conversation with the local businesses to be able to do something for residents. So I think for me, it's an opportunity to continue those things that I did, and I'm excited about the opportunity.
I just want to keep the mic, and we're going to wrap it up. The closing statement, 2 minutes.
I think I show the experience and the knowledge. I've been inside of government as an assistant city manager, as an assistant county manager, and at the state level. The issues that we have inside the city are challenging, and I think you're looking for someone who understands those issues from budget to policy to working with staff to working with the citizenry. I bring that wealth of knowledge and information to this community, and I think I'm a valuable asset. So I look forward to your vote on August 20. Thaddeus Cohen for District 6.
I've, lived in Key West for 41 years. I do know the city like the back of my hand. And I've been instrumental with bringing the city of Key West to advanced wastewater treatment through my presidency of Reef Relief. I was also, as president of Clean Florida Keys, we made the path down from Key Largo to Key West by getting US 1 adopted as a scenic highway. So I was instrumental in that. I've served on many nonprofits over the years: Last Stand, Reef Relief, Clean Florida Keys, the Florida Keys Outreach Coalition. I wrote for the first grant that started the Sunshine Home. I've been very active with community service forever, probably doing at least